Welcome to the Fantasy Formula One podcast. I'm Paul. That's Ben. And this is everything you need to know about the state of fantasy Formula One and a lot of things you need to learn about the state of real world Formula One leading up to the 2025 Bahrain Grand Prix. If you're new, please subscribe to our YouTube, Spotify, or wherever you get your fantasy Formula One content so you can be part of our conversations. Ben and I do this sort of deep dive into our teams here to help us keep climbing the standings, which been a little rough for me at the start
No,
of this.
it's round
And
four, and it's still anybody's ball game.
we're just going to run right into the results from Japan. Nothing happened in this Grand Prix. The most interesting thing to happen was during practices and qualifying, there kept being fires and red flags. But after the first turn, just not much happened.
What would you say is an acceptable benchmark of performance for a number two Red Bull racer not named Max Verstappen?
As
hmm
soon as Yuki Tsunoda can get in, so he's consistently qualifying and placing in the top 10, I think that's strong because in order to get out of the top 8, you have to displace both Mercedes, both McLaren, both Ferrari, and pick your outlier. So maybe the top 8, probably. That would probably be the best they could hope for.
I think that's fair. I think if you're in a Red Bull car, if there's a car ahead of you called Racing Bulls or Haas, that's not
Yeah.
okay. But I have to wonder how many more driver number twos do they burn through before they either say, we'll just stick with whoever we've got for the remainder of the season because all the rules are being thrown out next year anyway.
Because it also depends on how steep the learning curve is. Like as soon as they're looking at this and they're like, man, like we don't know how long it's going to take somebody to get their hands on it. And what I've heard is that surfaces on the F1 car in the next year are going to be very much more dynamic, where the driver doesn't have a bunch of the switchy control. It's here's the mode I want it to go drive, and the car decides when a lot of stuff happens. At least that's what I've heard. Please, get in the comments and send us messages if you have heard other. I'd love to be corrected on it. Do you go with drivers of the old guard, or do you get somebody who has no bad habits, nothing to relearn, and just teach them from square one moving forward?
Harkening back to gladiator style rules where car one and car two are tethered together by like a 20-foot chain, but that introduces a whole combat strategy.
We should get the European football style of promotion and relegation.
Yeah,
I think it'd be great, but
that's fantastic. I think if nothing else, the Ryan Reynolds and Rob
yes.
McElhenney documentary series, Welcome to Wrexham, if they did nothing else, they
Yep.
introduced to American Western audiences the concept of relegation and
Yeah.
opened our eyes to like why doesn't every sport do this? Yeah, if there was a variation of that for Formula One, oh man, the drama, the stakes would be
Oh,
so much
yeah.
higher. Let me ask a question about legacy. Do you think Max Verstappen is upset that they can't find a good driver number two or a matching driver or are not investing in a driver number two? Or is he fine being the individual driver championship winner at the expense of the constructor championships?
And I won't speak for Max, but I think if you could guarantee him that as soon as he placed P3 half those races, that the constructor would win and he would still win the championship, I
Yeah.
think he'd be willing to let that gap close. But I don't think it's within any driver who finally makes it to F1 and who is winning to sacrifice their ability to win just to quote unquote help the team. If their teammate catches up with them, then fine, I'll think about it. But that being said, the car hasn't been the fastest car on the grid for all of last year. He still was able to make it work.
Yeah.
It's not too much longer before even his skill no longer keeps up with the tide of time, so to speak. I think if Red Bull doesn't make a move, they're going to find themselves so far behind that Max Verstappen's skill doesn't keep up with it, and Max will go somewhere else who does. Clean break, fantasy mode.
Break, new message.
Break, new message. I miss those days. One of my old deputy commodores, it was the most break, new message thing I've ever seen. And he was old like surface warfare officer, right? Like dude's hard because they're a guy who drinks lead and spits musket balls, right?
Yeah.
He was talking with somebody. I was the air boss, so I was sitting there listening to him talk with somebody else, and he goes, talk, break, blah, and just started a whole new conversation, and it just infused itself in my mind. I'm like, man, I need to remember that. That was great. So break. The rules changed in fantasy Formula One this year. It used to be if you did well last week, your value went up or down for the next week.
Sure.
This year, price recalculations are updated now based on driver and constructor performance over the previous 3 Grand Prix.
Oh.
So they look at how you did the last 3 races, and then as soon as this race in Bahrain occurs, the value will go up or down based on China, Japan, and Bahrain. And that week one is going to drop off
Oh, I like
of your
that.
averages. So what that means is teams that have a DNF still -20 on their price calculations after this race, their values are going to go up. Teams
Yes.
that did really well that first week but haven't done too much, now when they average them out and that week drops off, their values are going to go down. I don't know how they do their math. I still need to do some more research into it.
It's European. They go
It's
metric. Everything's
exact right,
weird, you
probably
know?
right. But lucky for me, there is another website that does know how this works.
Oh, crazy.
It is called F1fantasytools.com. Now, I do not have a subscription to this. This is the free. You just go to their website and you can find it. For example, for Oscar Piastri, here's
Yep.
their current value. This is how many points they scored 2 races ago, last race. And here, based on analytics, is how many points they expect them to score this race.
Interesting. Okay.
And it gives you the odds of them taking a -0.3, -0.1, +0.1, or +0.3 million dollar bump. Now we can moneyball our teams. Let's talk about Charles Leclerc. He got -12 points in round two, 20 points in round three. So they expect him to get 21 points,
Yeah.
which means, based on all the math, there's a 90% chance that
That
unless
his
something
value
weird
will
happened, his
drop.
value is going to drop 0.3 million after this race. Unless there's a bunch of DNFs and they get 70 points, their value will not go up after this race.
Wow. This is
Yeah,
a cool tool. And
this
again,
is
this is, I'm so glad there are people with analytical minds like
right.
this.
I thought I was good at analysis. This is far better.
Next
This is proof
level.
I'm a rookie. All right. So, but now let's go look at some of these drivers. Yuki Tsunoda comes in at 16 million. Yuki Tsunoda got 13 points. His value is 16.6 million. They think he'll get, call it 10 points, which means that the points he brings in isn't going to be enough to keep his value. Basically, Yuki Tsunoda is going to continue to lose value unless for some reason he starts placing better.
But this is
So,
this is one of the ones where you could roll the dice more because again, the data that you have available to make this prediction is limited to one race
very true.
and then the performance of anyone in a Red Bull car not named Max Verstappen. So
Exactly.
there, I mean, that's a lot of up in the air juggling balls in terms of making an accurate prediction.
And this isn't saying that they for sure will, but it gives you some odds and how much risk you want to take. If you really believe in Yuki Tsunoda and think, no, man, he just needs to settle in, fine. But his value, unless he scores more than 10 points, his value will go down next week. Doesn't mean you can't get him back next week,
Right.
but it means this shows where the trends are going. A lot of these drivers DNF'd like their first race, right?
Sure. Yeah.
Like doing this stuff. After this race, that DNF is going to drop off his record.
Even if he performs at a
Even if he
very mediocre
performs
level, his value will go
exactly.
up.
So there is a 61% chance that Doohan's value is going to go up 0.6, 23% chance his value is going to go up 0.2, simply for that DNF dropping off the stats. As soon as you want to moneyball your B tier, well, guess what? There's massive percentages that Hadjar, Behrman, Doohan, and Ocon are all, their values are going to tick up. But
Mhm.
Hulkenberg, he had a really, really great run that week that everybody got DNFs. That's going to drop off now, and he's going to get regression to the mean. They're expecting him to get 2 points this week because that's pretty much all he's done. 97% chance that his value will decrease 0.6 million. That 20-point race is going to drop away.
Yeah.
And if it's 2-1, his overall average points is going to plummet after this race, and his value is going to go down pretty much regardless of what he does. Then you need to offload him now before he takes that dip and then buy him again next week once his value is stabilized. But and so this is important just because you got to be careful who your B drivers are. You get rid of two of these drivers and instead put on Hadjar, Behrman, O'Connor, Doohan, your value will go up by that same 2.4% instead of going down by 2.4%.
Right. Well, and you know, this speaks to one of the fundamental lessons of fantasy Formula One rules that we discussed before, which is don't make decisions in anger. You know, no knee jerk reactions. Don't cut someone from your team just because they had a bad week. This amplifies that so much. Even if they have a bad week, their value could still be on the rise, and you might inadvertently price yourself out of that racer. The potential for this, now that we understand a little bit more how the sausage gets made here, is so much higher than we thought before.
All of the constructors are going up in value. So you need to hurry up and hop on McLaren, Mercedes, Ferrari,
Yeah,
VCarb, Haas, Williams, all going up. What I'm saying with that is, yes, we need to get two solid constructors in order to keep in the run points wise. Get your two solid constructors. Ferrari, not too solid. We'll see what they do this week,
right.
because as soon as this week they do get their 56 points, then the next week that negative 23 from the double DNF is going to drop off, and their value will jump up again as well. But you need to hurry up and get onto your teams now, because as soon as you don't, as soon as for some reason you get an Alpine, a Kick Sauber, or an Aston Martin, you're going to start losing those values, when at least you can get a Williams, a Haas, a V-Carb, and have the value keep going up. But whereas the drivers are much more week to week, you got to be careful, because right here, these guys are expected to go up just because of that week one scores that are going to drop off. And these guys are going to go down for largely the same reason. As soon as you keep your Albans and then they don't have a good race and they drop point 0.6, you could very easily find yourself losing that 2.4 million and not be able to buy into a constructor.
Yep. Yeah. So again, one of the ultra simplified takeaways from all of this talk, though, I would say, if you are looking for a way to build a team around a McLaren, this week may be your last chance to do that, because they have been high performing and they don't look to change. It's never been a fluke when they have done well. They are very soon going to be unreachable. My best performing team this week coming out of Alpha Japan is the fancy car team, and it still follows the premise of go constructors first and then backfill as you can.
Yeah.
And on that team, my very best driver is Kimi Antonelli, which isn't for nothing. He's pretty solid, but having McLaren and Mercedes is my most consistent safety net. On the far end, I've got my all Mercedes team, which is okay. But that's George Russell, Kimi Antonelli, Mercedes, and then whatever else I can afford. I've got Haas as my other constructor, both Haas drivers, and Alex Albon. They didn't do too great, 128 points this past week. Yeah, if you want to build anything around McLaren, do it before this coming week, because they're only going to get pricier.
Yeah. And I completely agree with you. And I have a build very similar to this.
Uh-huh.
And I don't need, like, you just summarized it great, so I don't need to go into mine. But the hard part I have with this is, do I keep Kimi Antonelli? Do I get rid of one of these two drivers in order to be able to get McLaren?
Can you still get McLaren if you drop Russell?
Let me go to.
Oh, so you have that right now
okay,
on that other team.
I must have swapped around. I must have swapped that around.
Yeah, because you found a way to get Lando and McLaren on a team earlier on.
From early on. Yeah,
you can't do that now.
Nope.
It's already too late to do that going into week 4.
It's already because look at this. I mean, if you get rid of him, if you get rid of Hulkenberg, then and go all the way down to the bottom, you can get Bordeaux. Yeah, see, you can't.
Yeah.
It's already too late to get. I can keep.
Piastri's doing too well.
Piastri's doing too well, so it's already too late for me to get Mercedes, McLaren, and Piastri on this team.
Wild.
It might even be too late because of these guys. So what the move that I want to make is keep Racing Bulls on there. V-Carb is going to go up. There's a 99% chance that unless they really start crashing out, they're going to go up by 0.6 million. So I'm going to want to keep them on my team at least for this week. Get rid of both of these drivers and add both of Haas. All these guys are expected to go up, and I have Norris, and then V-Carb's expected to go up 0.6 again. But there's going to be lots of work going. I'm getting rid of Sonoda. I'm going to get rid of Lawson. I'm going to keep everybody else here.
So hey, with that drama, let me see if I'm summarizing this correctly in terms of what happened with Yuki Tsunoda and Liam Lawson from a fantasy perspective. Like we talked about last week, it was kind of unprecedented for two drivers to switch out for each other's constructors, and what that means if you had that driver on their previous constructor. So say you had added Yuki Tsunoda as a Racing Bulls driver, and once the announcement gets made that he's going to be going to Red Bull, that his value is going to jump because he's in a much better vehicle, a car that's capable of winning races if you have the reflexes of like a hummingbird, I guess. And so therefore Yuki's suddenly going to be more expensive. And so if you snagged him earlier, you thought, oh, hey, I've got it made in the shade. I bought him for Racing Bulls prices. I'm going to have leftover money, but now I'll have a Red Bull driver. This is great. Maybe that's how it'll work out. No. What Fantasy Formula One did was basically just say, that driver is that driver is no longer on that team. What you bought was a Racing Bulls driver. You didn't buy that specific individual person. So now, if you have Racing Bulls Yuki Tsunoda after he's already changed out into his new outfit for Red Bull, you have an inactive driver, and you're not going to get any points for that. In fact, now you get penalized for having that. Found out that Yuki was going to Red Bull, and you ran out and put him. You bought him on Racing Bulls for your team, thinking you're gonna capture that added value. That's not how they played it, which kind of sucks. Is
It
that an accurate summary?
that is a very good summary because they basically removed that entire component of the game. Now, I feel they greatly mismanaged that entire situation. One thing that I forgot to mention at the very beginning, is I want to start stepping up our interactions and updates in the comments on YouTube, comments on Spotify. Keep telling myself I'm going to be able to post like quick reels and quick updates after the race weekend starts. So what I might start doing is posting quick updates in the comments section, specifically on YouTube, Spotify, and maybe on Instagram, but start doing that for this upcoming race weekend. Well, hey, everybody, thanks for watching, and we will talk to you after Bahrain.
Yep. Take care.
Cheers.